What the Tech is sponsored by IT Dev Connection in Las Vegas, September 15th to the 19th. Register now using offer code TECH14 to save $200.
What's the tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarin. Of course, I'm joined by the returning Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Hello.
You are back.
I am back.
But you are not home. You are still on vacation.
Well, I'm still in the home swap.
You're still in the home swap.
My vacation's over. So we did the vacation in the middle. Now
Okay.
So I'm still in Barcelona, but I'm working.
How was the week where you were disconnected? I'm amazed by
good.
this. Nobody could get in touch with you. I didn't know where you were.
Yeah.
You were offline.
If you were, I posted to Facebook occasionally.
Occasionally, but I mean, pretty much you were offline. I mean, for the most part.
Well, I wasn't working. That's true. Yeah.
How was that?
So, yeah, it was healthy. Actually, there was a great story in the New York Times during that trip that was about the need to disconnect and all that kind of stuff. And this is kind of, I think, an ongoing topic in our era, because we're the first generation that has been so immersed in technology. And, I still think we treat technology in a very immature way. We walk around with our faces in our phones and ignore the people we're with and all that kind of stuff. And
Absolutely.
So, this kind of thing it was healthy. Although I should tell you a funny story. We went to Morocco, so we went to Africa. We did do that. And I don't know if you saw any of the pictures online, but that was a good trip. And we're walking around with a tour guide who came highly recommended and was fantastic. And he had a great hotel in Tangier, and he was fantastic. He was a great guy. And he kept, he kept pulling out his phone and kind of cursing at it. And I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Oh, my damn kid installed some kind of crazy malware texting app on here, and I can't get rid of it."
What?
And I said, and it keeps texting me. I keep getting text messages. And I said, I can try to fix that for you if you want. And of course, it's in whatever his language is. It's crazy looking. And but I use Android. I get it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of I tried to and you actually, as an Android user, you may appreciate this, and people who use Android will know this. From the start screen or from the home screen, you can remove those shortcuts just by tapping and holding and dragging it up to the top. And there's a remove icon, whatever. But if you want to uninstall an app, typically you go into the apps view and you find it in the list, and then you do the same thing, and that option changes to uninstall.
You got to go into settings. You have to do all that stuff. Yeah.
Yes, some apps are written in such a way that you can't uninstall them that way, and it's not. I think this started as a way for handset makers to make it more difficult for users to uninstall their apps. But obviously, some apps use this as well, and I consider those apps to be borderline malware myself. And this
Are you
app
talking
was
like
that.
So when I got my LG G2, this thing was not. It had apps that cannot be uninstalled. Like I have a caller ID service.
Yeah,
like caller name
apps,
ID.
by the way.
You could hide it, but it's not. You can't uninstall it.
Right. Okay. But if you install a third-party app, you can uninstall it the same way that you hide an app. You have to go into the settings, apps, whatever the interface is. But I kind of navigated it through his through his language and everything. And I showed him. I said, "This is how you do it." I said, "You sure you want to do this?" He said, "Yeah." And I removed it, and he was really grateful. And he said, "How do you know how to do that?" And I said, "Listen." I said, "This is what you do for a living." I said, "This is what I do for a living."
Yeah. What was the app?
It was kind of a neat.
What was the app?
It was a messaging app. I don't remember the name.
Like some random one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, his phone kept bloop, 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 bloop.
Yeah, I've been using. I installed a bunch of these messenger apps because my wife's still in Poland, and she's having the time of her life. Actually, she says that Poland is awesome.
By the way, I've seen your wife on Facebook, and she's clearly doing like road trip Poland 2014 or whatever.
Oh my God, she's literally driving. Like they're in a car, they're driving like 5 hours to small towns in Poland. It's like the most insane trip ever. She's not staying at like the Ritz-Carlton in Warsaw, She's actually like going and doing stuff there.
Yeah, she looks like she's having a good time.
Oh, she's having the time of her life, and I'm miserable here as usual.
Yeah, yeah.
You brought up something interesting. How people are so submerged in their phones. I went to the Mets game, and I was just looking around. Almost everybody, the entire game is like this, just staring at their phone. They look up,
sure.
they're texting. They're just texting away.
Something happens on the screen, everyone jumps up.
Everybody
like, oh my
jumps
God,
up. It was so bizarre to see. And my biggest worry is that I'm going to get hit by a fly ball. Like, that's going to happen if I'm on my phone. So I'm really careful about this because we were sitting in, like, foul territory. So I tell my friend next to me, I'm like, listen, he's like, I'm like, I don't want to take any pictures. Why don't you take the pictures? He's like, why? I'm like, my biggest fear is that here's going to be this fly ball coming at me. I'm not going to know what's happening, and I'm going to be that idiot on ESPN that gets hit right in the face. As I say that, lefty goes up to bat, nails it. The thing is coming at me. Now, I don't know what to do. Do I try to catch this ball? Or do I just duck and cower out of the way? Or do I grab the girl next to me and put her and use her as a human shield?
Yeah.
All this is going through my head. I decide I'm just going to cower and hide. The ball comes 2 seats away from me, nails the guy in the face. And I go, this is why I don't text.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was terrifying.
I probably told you the story. I mean, but this is reminiscent of that. I, years ago, was going to meet some woman's husband. And so our boss was trying to describe this to me. And he was really kind of hemming and hawing over how to describe this guy. And I said, hold on a second. I said, if I were to throw a football at this guy, would he catch it? Or would he kind of, cower from it? And he said, oh, no, he'd totally cower from it. I said, that's all you got to say.
That's it. That's all you got to say.
I get it.
Yeah, I was, it was terrifying, actually. And I was on, SNY caught me, the Met station here,
Nice.
like in the shot. And my phone blew up at that point, and everybody's messaging. It's like, oh, you're at the game? Who are you with? Because there was a girl next to me.
Nice.
My friend's sister was next to me. And
you were without your wife again.
I was without my wife again. This time it was a brunette, so it made it even worse. So I'm going to talk about that story on the post show because it's actually hysterical. Again, Nobody's loyal anymore. Nobody is loyal. A bunch of our viewers too. So I'll talk about that on the post show for our Patreon show. But
they are not men.
No, they're ratting me out to everybody. Brian Monroe in the room knows who I'm talking about. She is cute, he says. I want to go into, there's a lot happening this week. I want to talk about that. I want to talk more about your trip. But before we do that, Paul, I want to talk to you about an event you're going to be at. You are going to be at the IT Dev Connections. And you're going to be
wondering where you were going with this. You're right, I am.
You are going to be there. And you're on a panel with Mary Jo Foley. And MJ was on last week, which was a great show, actually. I had a great time with her.
Good.
But this is actually a phenomenal event. A great conference for many of our viewers. They're in the field. A lot of them are IT professionals. They're developers. This event is in Vegas. It's Las Vegas, September 15th at the Aria Hotel, which is a phenomenal hotel. If you're at the Aria, go for brunch. Right. Go there for brunch. They have a phenomenal brunch on Saturdays. They got this pulled pork brunch. Now I'm doing a live read for the Aria, but it's a little bonus for you guys. They got 5 technology tracks: Windows, SQL Server, SharePoint Exchange. Yes.
If you don't mind.
Go ahead.
It's not from September 15th to the 29th. It's not a 2-week show.
19th. September 15th to the 19th. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did I say the 29th? Okay. September 15th
to the
19th.
On the screen there.
Does it? Oh, okay. That's why. Okay, so I will pull that down. September 15th to the 19th. That's what it is. And this is actually great. There's going to be 180 sessions, 18 full pre and post conference workshops, and the main thing, if you're involved in this, you want to network. You have the opportunity to talk to fellow attendees, speakers, sponsors, and over 100 independent experts speaking, which is one of you. You and Mary Jo are experts in the field that you talk about. What is your panel going to be about? Tell me a little bit about the panel, because
it's all we do future stuff.
You do future stuff, okay?
Yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with Windows Weekly or the stuff that Mary Jo and I write, it will be very much along those lines. But we got Brad Anderson from Microsoft showing up, and then all these amazing experts, Tony Redmond and I don't see him here, but I assume Mark Manassi and everybody else. But the reason you come to Connections is because it's not 7,800 people.
Yeah.
It's a small crowd. You can really network and really talk to people. Mary Jo and I will literally go and have beer with you. Like we're
That's
going
what
to
she was
be,
saying. Yeah.
hanging. Yeah, literally. And it's such a neat thing. And one of the really lucky things for me in life is that I'm associated with Windows IT Pro and all the amazing experts we have. I mean, I sort of hesitate to call myself an expert. I'm more of a kind of a jack of all trades kind of guy, but there are guys who really deep dive into these individual technologies, and they're just geniuses, and they're great guys too. And this is just the kind of a highlight of the year. I can't wait for this. So, plus, we're in the area this year, which is amazing.
It's a great place. Where was it last year?
It's usually in either Mandalay Bay or what's next to Mandalay Bay? Somewhere down there. It's one of those type places usually. But yeah, Aria. This is first year in Aria. Sean Doobie will be there. Michael O'Day, Rod Trent. Sorry, Dan Holm. Tony Redmond. Like I said, Mary Jo. It's amazing. Just amazing.
Yeah, this is definitely an event to check out, and we have a phenomenal deal for our audience. If you're going to the event, you're going to be going to the event, or you want to go to the event, you can register and use offer code TECH14, and you save a couple $100 on this thing. So it's actually a really good deal. IT Dev Connection, September 15th to the 19th. Paul's going to be there. This is a great event, and this is like their third time taking a spot out with us. And I've always said I like to support things that I actually believe in. I think it's actually useful for our audience, and this is definitely one of those things that many of our viewers are going to find useful. IT Dev Connections, I want to thank them for supporting What the Tech, and guys should go and support them by checking out their website. devconnections.com is the website. So, Paul, where do we begin this week? A lot happening. A lot is happening. So why don't we start off with the big story?
Okay.
Big story. Two big stories today.
No, hold on.
Okay.
We got to start off with what is clearly the most important story of all time, which is the downfall of iPad as a camera.
Okay, so what is going on?
I have witnessed something this month, I guess, that I've never seen before, and I have seen it everywhere, and it blows my mind. And, I've often made fun of people with iPads standing with the stupid iPads up in the air taking photos and stuff. And then, of course, they always have the cover so the thing's hanging down. And I'm just like, I don't understand why people do this, because obviously those people have an iPhone in their pocket, and the iPhone is a much better camera than the iPad. Why would they not just use the iPhone? And obviously there's a small excuse. I mean, you could say, well, obviously the screen is humongous on an iPad. You can see it better and all that. And I get that. But I have finally seen something.
Okay.
That makes iPad as a camera look sane by comparison.
Okay, tell me.
And I've seen so much of it that it is obviously a plague that is spreading across the earth, and it will surely hit the United States soon if it hasn't already. I have never seen it before until I got to Europe, and I see it everywhere here. And I'm telling you, I'm scared to death of it. It's like the zombie apocalypse.
Okay, tell me.
And it's called. You got to brace yourself for this.
Okay.
It's called the selfie stick.
The what? Selfie stick? The selfie stick. This? No, I have not seen this. Do I have to see this?
It's a metal pole.
Okay.
And there are various configurations. So a lot of times it will just be a metal pole with a camera mount on the end, and you screw a camera onto it. And what you do is you hold it out away from you, and it moves the camera further than you could hold it just if you were just holding the camera. And then you can take a picture of yourself.
Is that it?
Something. That's one version of it. But here's the crazy thing, and that's a crazy example of one. Because there are selfie sticks that have been adapted to work with touchscreen phones, like iPhones and Android phones and whatever.
Yeah.
And so if you think about how such a phone works when you're taking a selfie, you can see yourself in it. And so obviously what they have is a trigger on the selfie stick. And you hold the thing out, and you can see yourself up in the screen. So you can tell if you're centered or whatever. And then you pull the trigger, and a little fake finger goes out and hits the camera button
brilliant.
on the screen.
How many people have you seen using this?
I'm not kidding. Hundreds.
No.
And here's the thing. If you went to, you told me you went to the Mets game.
I did.
So I can assure you, I know for a fact that what you saw was people taking pictures of themselves in front of the field or
absolutely,
stuff
yeah.
like that. because for some reason it's important. It's not enough to show that to take a picture of the thing. You have to take a picture of the thing with
I
you
take
in
a
front
bunch
of
of
it for some reason.
selfies at the game.
Okay, not a big selfie person myself. Okay, I, th- I don't understand. Imagine you were going to Europe for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it was, and instead of taking pictures of the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower and the Ramblas in Barcelona, whatever you were doing, what you did instead was take a bunch of pictures of you in front of every one of those things. In other words, you don't actually have a photo of the Eiffel Tower. You just have photos of you in front of the Eiffel Tower. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
goal of this device is
Not
to
to
make
give
sure
your
that you're in
phone,
every picture.
and also not to give your phone
Yeah,
to anybody.
sure. I just here. Okay. I am so fundamentally opposed to this. I don't even know how to explain it other than to say this. This thing, this selfie stick, which I of course want to jam, right up there. When I see it, makes taking pictures with an iPad okay. That's how bad it is.
That's how bad.
I am now going to backtrack on my previous position about iPads and photo taking and say, you know what? God bless you. It's not on a stick. That's all I ask. Now I've seen the selfie stick, and I'm sorry I complained. The selfie stick is a crime against humanity. I have no idea what's going on there.
So this kind of goes into what I was going to talk. By the way, one of the best photos I've ever taken in my life, and this is insane to say, comes from my iPad Air.
Oh,
I took
God.
one of the greatest photos ever. I just took it and I snapped it, and it was with my iPad Air. So I did it, and it's weird to say that I took a great picture, but I took a great picture with it.
Let's not get too far down that.
Yeah.
Down that road.
I
please.
was in the city, and there were so many people walking around with their iPads snapping pictures. And we're not talking about the iPad mini, guys. We're talking about a full blown
Dude,
iPad
You know
2.
the 12-inch Samsung tablet?
Yeah.
I saw someone at a Barcelona football, like a soccer game, taking pictures with that thing. Like you might as well be holding a billboard up. But you know what? But like I said, it's cool. Didn't have a stick.
That's hysterical.
I'm okay with it. But it was weird.
That's so.
By
That's
the way, I've
hysterical.
taken exactly one selfie in my entire life. And in 2009,
You remember the date?
well, you'll know why in a moment. I went to The Hague in the Netherlands to speak at the Microsoft launch event for Windows 7. And it was a beautiful arena. It was an amazing place. And when I kind of made a joke up front, I said, listen, I've spoken in a lot of different places. This is one of the most beautiful I've ever been to. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a photo. And by the way, it was with an iPhone because this is 2009 before Windows Phone came out. So it probably had like a 3GS or whatever was the thing that year. And so I said, if you don't mind, if everyone could, squeeze into the middle, and smile, and they laughed, and I took a picture of them. And then because people do this, I kind of turned around and the audience was behind me, and I took a picture of myself, like a selfie.
Yeah.
And I put the phone in my pocket, and I forgot all about it because I actually did it as a joke. It got a laugh, and I thought it doesn't matter. And the day went on. It was busy and it was crazy and whatever. And it was probably like the next day. And I was going through the photos, and I got the photo, and I was like, "Oh my God, that came out awesome!" And it's like a great picture, and I'm clear and focused, and you can see the crowd behind me, and it was just an awesome picture. And that's the last time I ever did it.
I
I just did it as a joke.
So it's funny you bringing up the selfie thing because this kind of goes into one of the stories that I want to talk about. The HTC One M8. Okay.
Yes.
They just made the announcement today that they unveiled their Windows Phone edition of this, and we'll go into that. But this phone has one of the best front-facing cameras I've ever seen on a camera.
Right.
It's actually unbelievable, the front-facing camera. It's a 5-megapixel front-facing camera, but they do a lot of like software processing with this thing. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I was blown away by it. So I just want to put that out there. So for all you selfie fans, you can now buy a selfie stick. By the way, I've seen people use this, a selfie stick, but the people that I have seen use it are using it for like a GoPro, or they're using it for, photography to kind of stabilize it on the stick to go around.
So I've seen that as well. And
that makes a little bit more sense.
A little more sense. Although, there's something weird with GoPro users because unless you're connecting it to your helmet and jumping off of a cliff, by nature, what you're doing is lame. So walking around with in other words, you could walk around with a camera. Or you could be one of these guys, and you walk around with a stick, and the camera's on the stick, and you're just getting the same exact
How about
view
this?
that you would have gotten anyway. Yeah.
How about one of these?
Well, that's a self. You're taking it's a self.
It's
It's
a
a self
yeah,
photo.
it's a photo. Okay.
But for example, we were in actually it was here in Barcelona. There's a mountain, Tibidabo or something that's up at the back of Barcelona. It's really tall. There's a beautiful church on the top of it, and you kind of walk up, to get to the top. And there's a guy in front of me with a selfie stick or whatever you want to call that, and a GoPro camera, and he's literally filming the ascent. So he has created a video of walking upstairs. And it's like my son and I look at it, he's like, what's going on here? And I'm like, just walk by this guy. This is ridiculous. Like he's going slow because he's he's looking through the little GoPro thing. Like
He's making a
I don't get it.
montage.
It's like you ever go to like an aquarium and you take like 150 pictures of fish,
And there's like
Or you
four of
go
them
to,
that's actually decent.
and you're never gonna look at them again. Who cares how good it is? You're not Jacques Cousteau. It's not gonna come out good. And then you go to like a fireworks thing with your smartphone. You take 150 pictures, and they're all blurry, baloney pictures of nothing. And that's what you do. And so like I think the GoPro is like that. It's almost like you can't help it because you bought the thing.
Now you got to use,
So
and
you
it's
gotta,
not cheap.
you're gonna walk around like a jerk with it. But what are you filming? Like your life is boring. Like why? You're not gonna watch this again.
Nobody's ever going to watch it. Nobody's ever watching it. I actually want to get a GoPro for when I go skiing because I ski a
Yeah.
lot. So like for that I would do it, but like you see in the city, if you're in Manhattan, you see a bunch of people walking around with their helmets on, nothing else, and just walking around with a GoPro. And for whatever reason, and the only way that I justified is that they're making like a documentary and they need to get like stock footage of this, or it's like an expose. Like they're doing like some like hard copy style expose.
They're not, but they're not, right? I mean, they're not.
Oh man, Jacques Cousteau. I like that one.
I don't understand. Look, we all do it. By the way, I just want to be clear. I went to the aquarium here in Barcelona. Took 100.
It took 100. Yeah, I do the same thing too.
Nothing. It's like here's a blurry gray blob. I think it was a shark. I don't know.
I think a bunch
was
of pictures
obviously
at the Mets game because they actually won, and it's a rare sight.
Sure.
It's actually going to be worth money. My photos.
Nice.
That's hysterical.
I do it by the way. It's really full of water, but
You have your Mets cup.
This will be the last sighting of the Mets Cup.
The guy is suffering from some sort of growth on his head. Our logo.
I want to get that looked at.
Yeah.
It's
Our logo is a man that's head is the size of a giant. I don't even know what it is. Yeah, in his skull.
It's not good.
So let's talk about this M8. The M8 Windows Phone Edition. Actually, this is great. And we were texting back and forth while this was happening. And this is really eerily similar to, the mid-2000s with Palm, where they had the Palm OS edition of the Trio, and then they had a Windows Phone edition of the Trio. And the Windows Phone edition did pretty well.
Yeah.
At that time.
Day, sure. That was a nice phone for that day. I mean,
do you think this is something that all the manufacturers should be doing at this point, where they're offering you an option? Yeah. So they have the Samsung Galaxy, let's say the Samsung S, you get it in Windows Phone, or you get it in Android, or whatever else you want to get it as.
So I don't think it's ever going to be that good. But I mean, I've been asking for this kind of thing for years. But the interesting thing is, it was never a technical issue. It was really more of a licensing issue. And so this year, Microsoft has done a bunch of things that makes this more viable, or actually makes it possible at all. So they made Windows Phone free, for example. That's not why HTC did this, but they removed some of the restrictions on Windows Phone. So you recall before Windows Phone 8.1, your phone had to have physical buttons on the front for back, start, search. They got rid of that. Now you can have on-screen buttons, just like Android, right? You used to have a camera button. Android phones do not have camera buttons. Now you don't have to have it on Windows Phone. All of a sudden, when you remove all of those kinds of restrictions, a hardware maker looks at Windows and says, hold on a second. This OS is actually cheaper than Android now, because unless I'm doing AOSP, I'm paying for the Google Play stuff. That's expensive. And they won't let me tailor the phone in certain ways. I have to put their stuff right up front and center. Or I can get Windows Phone for less. I can put it on the same exact device. I don't have to invest in, the R&D for new form factor, new, body design, whatever.
Yeah, the phone, they know that it works well.
So, will Samsung ever do this with like an S5 type phone? Yeah, probably not. But, the HTCs of the world, the LGs of the world, Absolutely. And that's really neat because, when you're on the sidelines like we are in the Windows Phone world and you look out at what's happening with the major platform Android, you look at the S5, you look at the HTC One, you look at the LG, whatever they're on, G3, you look at those Nexus Play devices and you think, wow, I want that device, but I want it running Windows Phone. Just offering that as a choice is so smart, and it's easy. They've really just made it simple
So
and cheap.
here's my question. What kind of app store are they going to have on this with Android? So
It's
when
Windows Phone.
no, I'm sorry. Let me backtrack that. When they don't
Yep.
do when they don't do the Google Play stuff, what are they doing now? Are
Well,
they
they have
just
to do
putting
a third party
Amazon?
store.
Yeah, so they're putting just Amazon on
So
that preloaded.
I don't know of anyone that does that in a mainstream sense, other than Amazon. But I would imagine, like the phone that you just got, we'll talk about in a little while. It's probably like a cyanogen type
No,
thing or
I
whatever.
got all the Google Play stuff.
Okay, but they have to do something. So when Nokia was doing that, they had their own store.
Oh
When
yeah, yeah.
Amazon
Okay.
does it, they have their own store. There aren't too many places to turn, right?
Because I remember early on in the Android days, you saw a lot of these third party stores coming up, but now
That's
now it's all Google. So I don't know if they
yeah.
changed the way that they do the licensing now, where they actually allowed a Google Play store to be on there, or
I
people are
don't
just
know.
paying for the licensing to have that.
I, I
Oh,
would
that's
imagine they're
interesting.
paying for it.
So
I don't know.
with HTC putting Windows Phone essentially having the same one, are you going to be able to kind
Mhm.
of go and customize? Like, is the idea now for HTC to say, okay, if I want this phone, I could get it as Windows or Android? Like, can you like
Yeah.
and the reason why I bring that up is I got this phone right here. I got the OnePlus One, which I'm going to be doing a
Right.
review on Friday. This is in my opinion, I could be wrong, guys, so don't
Mhm.
hold me to it. And I've been pretty critical of Android phones on the market. I've actually severed a relationship with a carrier where they sent me review units because I was so critical of some phones. I'm an Android user. I talk about it. I use it every day. This is probably the best Android phone that has come out.
Yeah.
It's a total package, this thing, and the reason why it's because for an enthusiast, you could totally customize this thing. I have options to overclock it if I wanted to. You could change the theme to whatever you want. I mean, I have a theme here. I don't know if you guys could see it. So like it's like the round icons.
Mhm.
It's absolutely a beautiful phone, beautiful design. The camera's good. It's as good as all the
Yeah.
other Android cameras right now. Um, and it's $349 for a 64 gig version, $299 for the 16 gig. And you buy it from OnePlus One. Right now it's invite only because it's still limited, but the theory is
Yeah.
you go to OnePlus One, you get the phone, now it's yours for $299, no carrier, whatever. You could just do whatever you want with it. In the long run,
Right.
though, do you see if this is the model, right? If a company like OnePlus One is able to say, you know what, $299, the 400 under $400, the phone is yours. You don't have to go through a carrier, none of that BS. This is kind of the model that
Right.
we all want as enthusiasts. In theory, I should be able to, if OnePlus One starts doing this, go to OnePlus One's website, I order
Mhm.
the phone, and I decide if I want Android on it or Windows Phone on it. Just a little drop down. Do you want the Windows edition? You want the Android edition?
Yeah. So that's not the way the HTC works,
Unfortunately, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, sure, why not, right? I mean, why these operating systems are free? Why couldn't you from the manufacturer's website download the image and throw it on there and go back and forth if you wanted to?
Sure.
I mean,
Why can't you?
I, maybe that stuff happens. I don't know, but this is the first big step, and the HTC is a big deal because it was a very well received phone. It's a flagship phone. It's a high end phone, um, and it supports some kind of esoteric features that actually have carried over to Windows Phone. Microsoft in Windows Phone 8.1 Update 1 is supporting smart covers. The HTC One has a smart cover option, by the way, and it works with Windows Phone. That's amazing. Um, and so this is a big step because Windows Phone has been kind of the backwater of the smartphone market since inception. And I'm not saying this is what's going to put it over the top or anything, but I mean, this is a big step forward. So, we'll see. Samsung and Microsoft are rumored to be settling their recent patent dispute, and I'll be interested to see I don't expect to see like S5 come out in a Windows Phone edition even 6 months after or something. But if they could basically give you an S Class 5 device at the same time as it launches on Android, and even if it was a slightly different phone, I mean, that would just be amazing, especially coming from the world's biggest smartphone maker. So we'll see. I think the bigger impact is going to be those 12 or 15 companies that have signed on to Windows Phone in the past 6 months, who are from China and from India and from other parts, and some of them from the United States too, but smaller companies, and you'll get these phones on here in the US on like Cricket or GoPhone or whatever the Verizon program of the same ilk is called.
And here's the interesting thing. I mean, the port now, people are going to have this ROM out of,
Yeah.
on an Android phone. I'm curious to see how many people are going to start porting their phones over to Windows Phone. Because now
Sure.
you're going to be able to do it. It's essentially the same hardware.
It's always been the same hardware. Microsoft just had weird not weird, but licensing restrictions that were there actually for a reason. They wanted a consistent platform. That was one of the problems with Windows Phone. And people, you look at the specs and you're like, why would they take away the camera button? That's such an incredible feature of Windows Phone. Why would they take away those hardware buttons on the front that people find so useful and everything? This is why. So Android makers can say, yeah, here's one with Android, here's one with Windows Phone. It's good.
Are the Nokia apps not going to be on the HTC phone?
So it depends on the app. So some of them are broadly available in the store and available to everyone, and some of them are only for Nokia phones. And so I'm just going off the top of my head, but for example, I think you can get Drive, which is their navigation app, for free on any phone, and that gives you downloadable maps in your country only. But if you have a Lumia device, most Lumia devices actually, that's limited to some is more limited on some low end Lumias. But you get Drive Plus, which is downloadable maps in all regions around the world. That kind of thing.
This is actually a really nice device, and unfortunately it's Verizon only right now.
Well, unfortunately or fortunately, depending how you look at it.
Yeah.
It's weird how this happens because when inevitably AT&T always gets a lot of Windows phones here in the U.S. and people from Verizon will complain, oh, when are we going to get Verizon phones? This happens on Verizon now, and I'm already hearing from people, oh, what's going on with AT&T? This has been a good year for Verizon on Windows Phone because we had the Icon first, which is a wonderful phone, and now we have the HTC One M8, which is a terrible name for what appears to be a wonderful phone. What's going on with AT&T? But people need to remember there's a big trade show coming up in Germany sometime in the next 30 days. My expectation is that Microsoft/Nokia will announce probably 2 or more devices, including what I think will be not like a 1020, 1520 replacement, but more of a mid-level phone that will probably be more broadly applicable to a wider audience, where it will have a really good camera, but it will be thinner, lighter body style, that kind of thing. And so I think you're going to see some new AT&T stuff coming, not so far away. So I wouldn't get too stressed over that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is awesome.
I mean, if you're on
actually,
Sprint, you should be super stressed if you're on Sprint. But if you're, if you're on AT&T, Verizon, you're all set. If you're on T-Mobile, you've got some reasonable options. I think a lot of T-Mobile folks do the unlock route though, and you can bring phones from other carriers to T-Mobile, and they tend to work pretty well. So, or certainly from Europe as well. And so you have different options there too.
I put the AT&T Go plan on this one, the prepaid thing, because I don't have an AT&T package.
Do you get LTE on that?
I'm getting LTE. I'm getting like 40 by like 10 speeds on this thing.
Nice.
And it's just a prepaid thing that I'm paying, like $50 a month for, just so I could have it on the phone, and I could just swap this after with whatever phone. So I have a Windows phone. I'm just swapping them in and out. And it actually is much easier to do it that way than to deal with the carrier.
If you're not doing this, the biggest mistake I've made with phones in a way is not proactively using Google Voice and having a single phone number, so that as I swap SIMs and things, went between phones, I could just always have the same number and not have to worry about it.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that at all. And when you come back, I need to talk to you about the best way to set that up, because now I have 3 different phones with 3 different numbers.
I need to do it as well. So this is something I'll be doing soon myself, because right now everyone I know personally or at work has a single cell phone number, and I would have to guess going forward that's not going to be my number, and I need to. If I had just done I mean, I've had a Google Voice number forever. I just don't use it effectively. So this is something I'm going to be investigating soon. Yeah.
So, I mean, 2 years ago, everybody was saying how HTC was in trouble because they're not, they're falling behind in the smartphone market. LG's actually doing really well with Android. They've had their best year ever for
LG
Android
has.
phones. Yeah, they're doing really well with their phones right now.
Okay.
Do you see? Is this their like a kind of like a backup thing where in the smartphone in the Android market, it's kind of hard to penetrate that if you're an HTC because Samsung is so dominant.
Well,
Is this like a what? Let's take a different angle on this. Let's offer a phenomenal phone. Yeah, you could get Android, but you could also get Windows Phone on this.
Android, Samsung's dominance is waning, and I think they will be the biggest phone maker, certainly the biggest Android phone maker for a long time to come. But as they've gone up and up and up, I think that it's sort of like Internet Explorer. They kind of hit 80, and then maybe it's 60, or whatever. And the reason isn't so much LG or HTC as it is the 20 guys from China that we can't pronounce their names, and they're just going gangbusters on these low-end phones, or India or whatever market. And so it's weird. Like we're so used to consolidation in the tech industry, and so when you look at the smartphone market today, one of the big questions is whether is it just Android and iOS, or is there even room for Windows Phone? We're talking about maybe this market coalesces around two primary platforms, and that's it. But when you look at Android, it looks a lot like the car market, right? There are hundreds of car models, and possibly more than hundreds. None of them have 40% share. They all have, whatever percent share. It's a small single digit share or low double digit share. And that's the way it works. And I think, it won't be exactly like that, because I think Samsung will still be dominant, but not dominant the way they are today. And so companies like HTC and LG are what I think of as kind of tier 2 companies. And then the majority of it's going to be just a bucket load of like tier 3 companies, for lack of a better term.
So you think the market's just going to get saturated with these, smaller brands?
It's inevitable. It's already happening.
Yeah. I mean, look at what I'm using. What is a OnePlus One?
I know. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and they're doing something great.
Because, you can find exactly what you want. It's funny. The other, I don't know if you have this in the notes, but the other big story in this market today is the Sprint plan for data for multiple people and so forth. And that's an interesting reaction from one of the smaller of the big carriers in the United States to some trends, right? And one of those trends is what you're talking about, which is where you actually buy a phone. Like, what a crazy concept. You don't put it on a 2-year contract. You just buy it, and then it's unlocked. And then you can go month to month, and you can switch around, and it doesn't matter where you are. And by the way, that's the way a lot of the world already works, and it's not very common here in the US. And so how do you entice people who might be influenced by this kind of thing, might want to go to a pay-as-you-go type plan?
Yeah,
You
what did
offer
Sprint
a lot
do?
of data.
What's their plan now? You could get 4 lines for $160, but you're getting 20 gigs of data.
No, it's way better than that. It's if you're coming from another carrier, you can get 10 lines. I think it's 10 gigabytes of data, unlimited talk and text. It's shared data, so it's not 2.5 per line or whatever. It's 10 gigs. You can use it however you want. And obviously it's a family plan. You can't split it it's not like a family thing. It's a family plan. So most families don't have 10 people in them, unless you're the Osmonds or whatever. But, most people have, 4 or 5, whatever. And so you'll split it between that number of people. And then I think after 2015, it goes up to 160 if you want to stay on 10, but then you can do up to 4 for 100, which is what T-Mobile is also offering, by the way, same basic plan. So those plans are much cheaper than what's offered by AT&T or Verizon. The similar plans from those carriers are about $160 a month. And you can get right now individual plans from major carriers that are anywhere from $50 to $60, basically, is where that stuff is. And so you can kind of see if you have 2 or more people, $100 a month is a really good deal, especially as you add more and more people. So you've had an actual family like I do with 4 people. $100 a month is crazy. I mean, I'm paying $160 a month right now for 3 phone lines.
I'm paying
AT&T.
220. I pay
Yeah, I'm
220
gonna
for
be
8
rectifying
gigs
this.
and 3 people.
Yeah, I'm gonna be
220.
rectifying this when I get home. Yeah, no, this will be fixed. Um, so that's how the old guard fights back in a way, right? So for one thing, Sprint is coming from behind. They're the number 3 carrier. They're not number 1 or 2. So they're playing that game, but they're also playing a game against the Go phones, the pay-as-you-go world, which I think is going to be a bigger and bigger force in the United States, which it hasn't been to date. Um, because 350 is more than 200, but it's not 650, right? It's not 750.
Yeah.
350 is, or 299, whatever, is manageable. And I think people, I don't I don't think many people have not had a bad experience with a wireless carrier. And so I think as these things come around, people are going to start rethinking this. And
It's
is
really
there
the
a cheaper
Wild
way?
West for mobile in the sense of data
Yeah,
and for products. I mean, you look at the products. Uh, like, how does it make sense that a phone is $1,000? Like, it
it makes no
doesn't.
sense
It
at all.
makes no sense at all. And don't give me the baloney about research and development, because I pay $299, and this company probably put in the same research and development that Samsung is putting in. Plus, they probably don't have the direct deals that Samsung does because they sell a lot more products. So that's all baloney. But between the
Does it have
pricing
a sapphire
structures,
screen?
does it have a Sapphire? I don't know what it. I don't know. It's Gorilla Glass 3, I think.
Is it a seamless experience, Andrew?
It is a seamless experience. Yes.
I
Yeah.
love all
Very
the
seamless.
baloney arguments that people make.
Yeah. So between the data packages, which makes no sense, if you are consuming any kind of media on your phone or on your
Mhm.
on your tablet and you're going through 4G, you are going to go through that data within a week. I mean, it's nutty. The fact that we're still locked in 10 gigs is a lot to get from a carrier at this point. Uh,
Well, but
Crazy.
most people, I actually just thought of this today. In fact, I told you I think last time that I bought two gigabyte SIMs, right? So 30 euros for the month, 2 gigabytes of data. I just leave it on. It works great. I don't have to worry about it. This morning I was writing about Xbox Video for Windows Phone, and what I wanted to do was try to download some videos, and kind of see how it differed between Windows and Windows Phone. It doesn't really matter, but the point is, I started a download of House of Cards episode 1, which was available for free, so it seemed like a decent thing to try. And and then we went out and we did stuff. We go out during the day. We're tourists and we walk around and we take pictures and we do stuff. And then we were on the subway and I was like, you know, I downloaded like this 1.39 gigabyte video, but I don't think it finished before we left the house. So I hope I didn't download it on like 4G, like out in the
Oh
world,
my
because that
God.
would blow through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that shows you how ugly that can get, right? Like if you buy a movie on iTunes or whatever, an SD video that's 2 hours long is about 1.4 gigabytes, somewhere in there. A 2 hour movie that's in HD is going to be 3-4 gigabytes. If they, sometimes they have those extra features and stuff. This is not just an enormous amount of stuff to put on a solid state disk on a device. What if you downloaded that on your data plan? Like, how quickly
Yeah.
would one of those videos eat through it? It would be immediate. Now, obviously, applications have settings where you can say never do this over cellular or whatever, but that kind of shows you, because 10 gigabytes sounds like a lot. I think my plan on AT&T is 4 gigabytes. A lot of people have 2 gigabytes, for themselves. I never really go close to that at home, but when I'm home, like literally in my home, I'm on Wi-Fi, but I don't really think about it. And the truth is, I suppose I could, like I almost did. I thought I did today, although I didn't. You could leave the house, that thing could download. I mean, God forbid. You could be watching Netflix on the subway like a doofus.
Do you think this is going to change? I mean, when will this change? When will they say, okay, you know what, this is kind of crazy that we're kind of
Yeah,
regulating you
I
guys so much?
I think it's a lot like our online storage. Obviously the cellular industry, we started out with unlimited data. That's the way it was, and then the problem was everyone started using it, and they didn't have the infrastructure to support that, so they started limiting that, and we have these kind of set data plans that we have now. I actually think that like online storage, like OneDrive or Dropbox or whatever those services are, that over time it goes up and it kind of goes up, and you're seeing that now. So we're in that phase of it. T-Mobile, 10 gigabytes. Sprint, 10 gigabytes, cheap, like $99. It's really good. What's the next step? 25 gigabytes. I mean, eventually it's just like it's effectively, you know, I think we are going to get there. It requires that infrastructure to be there, because we're going to demand it. This is. This was the thing I came to on this trip. It's the reason I got the international SIM. I was tired of babysitting this thing. We come to Europe every summer. I sit there, I buy my little data plans from AT&T, and you babysit it. Make sure you're offline. You turn off the data part of it. You don't. You spend all this time. It's like, I just want it to work. Like, I don't want to think about it. Eventually, the convenience will kind of catch up with the price, and I think it will just become, the way it is.
Hopefully. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I'm crossing my fingers because I'm using more and more data. I mean, we're taking 3 meg pictures now. I mean, on some of these phones.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, we go out in the world and we take pictures on vacation, and they don't sync to the cloud until I get home and I'm on Wi-Fi. What if somebody pickpockets me and steals my phone? It's not, again, not the end of the world, whatever. But you have these sort of expectations that things just kind of work. Like, I don't really think about this stuff at home. But now that I'm here and I'm kind of worried about it, like, I think about it a lot, and
because you have the same problem that I do. I work from home too, so I don't really feel the crunch when it comes to this. But I went away to California and I went through 8 gigs on a family plan between 2 people in like 3 days.
Sure.
So
sure.
I could.
By the way, I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry, I'm having internet problems here too. I don't know what's going on here with the files, but you don't really think about it. I back up my photos to Dropbox and Google.
Yeah.
My wife is backing hers up to Dropbox. We didn't have Wi-Fi connection, so yeah, I'm backing it up. It's automatically set. I could turn it off. I mean, I did end up having to turn it up, but most people don't understand that they got to turn these things off. I mean, they don't check, Wi-Fi only.
I have a friend, by the way, who went to Europe. I want to say Spain or Austria or something like that. He was telling me this story in DC last month, but he he wanted to catch up with, actually, it might have been House of Cards, whatever the show was, or Breaking Bad or something like that. Like, he hadn't seen the final half season or whatever it was. And so he was in his hotel in whatever city, let's say Austria. And he was like, wow, I can watch this on my Windows phone. Like, this works really well. And he watched an episode and he was like, wow, the connection here is great. Like, this works really well. Like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna watch the rest of it. Like, I'll just like power watch it, Then he got home and he got like a $5,000 bill from his wireless carrier because he had done this. He had streamed it over like 3G or 4G or whatever to his phone, to Netflix. And he fought it and he lost. And they were like, no, you used this. Like, you actually used this.
And what did he do?
And he paid it. He paid the bill.
There's nothing you could do. I mean, at that point, you got to pay.
No, because he literally, I mean, it's not like a mistake. It's not like some weird overcharge. It wasn't like, look, I canceled this. Like he sat there and watched movies on our TV shows in this case.
Did he use the defense? I didn't know I couldn't do that.
What he said was, he goes, it was a great TV show, but it wasn't worth $5,000.
Poor guy.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
You brought up something interesting with the smartphone market, where a lot of these no-name companies that are really dominant in China and in India coming into the market here, and we're seeing that. I think as Americans, we're kind of conditioned for brand recognition.
Right.
We want names like Vizio, for example, was a no-name Chinese company for many, many years. And we didn't go near it until Walmart and a lot of these other places started supporting it, and it kind of became a major brand. Roku went on sale today. You could buy it on Amazon. You could use our Amazon link if you want to. They are now selling the first wave of Roku TVs, manufactured by a Chinese company called TCL. It's a very inexpensive television set, so the pricing starts at about $229 for a 32-inch. and a 55-inch is $649. So it's still undercutting Vizio by $50, I want to say. And these are Roku TVs. So it's programmed, and the entire interface is your Roku. Will companies like this start making a dent in the market when companies like Roku are kind of backing in? It's actually a Roku device, and it's not this no-name company. You know, I'm curious to see how these companies do. I forgot what the other one is with an H.
So what was the name of this company?
TCL.
So no one's heard of this.
I've never heard of this company, no.
To me, this reminds me of, Vizio, right? And Vizio was this brand that probably came out of China or Taiwan or whatever, and no one had ever heard of them, and whatever. And if you walk into I bet if you went into Costco right now, there's probably 50% of the TVs are Vizios, and they're really cheap, and they're cheaper than Samsungs, they're cheaper than Sonys, they're cheaper than LGs, whatever, and they're pretty good. Like we actually we own a Vizio TV, and they're fine. But when you first hear of a brand like this, your initial reaction is like, really, what is this? Like, why would I buy this thing? I don't think being a Roku TV puts it over the top per se, but there are smart TVs like the Samsung smart TVs, or even the Vizio TV has some kind of built-in menu where you can get Yahoo services, you can get Netflix, you can get Amazon. And I think we've talked in the past about the nicety of that stuff being on the one remote. You don't have to switch HDMI inputs and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, like, Netflix is great. I use it all the time. My kids have been streaming Netflix here, which really irks me because the internet is so slow. But they're like power watching House right now for some reason. If anyone has ever seen the show.
By the way, here's a fun fact: TCL is the third largest manufacturer in the world for televisions.
So,
and
but
we have
what
never
that
heard
tells me is, well, okay, so they're either like literally selling to the China market, we just have never heard of them. But the more likely scenario is they're what's called an ODM.
Yeah.
Meaning that they are the company that makes the TVs that other companies slap their brands on, and then they sell them. And so, for all we know, we've been talking about Vizio. Maybe they're the companies that, the company that makes Vizio TVs. Really, I don't, who knows?
But that's what HTC did for many years, right? They were an OEM.
That's what Asus did in the PC market. Asus used to make all of Dell's computers, and years and years ago, I remember seeing an Asus reference design long run time frame. So literally probably 10 years ago, and thinking, well, who is this crazy company?
Yeah.
And the guy from Microsoft said, no, you don't understand. These guys make literally all of Dell's computers.
The first time I remember hearing Asus is QVC. And they were selling it as a famous brand laptop. And they were saying, well, this company supplies all those brands that this is that brand. And it's Asus.
That's true. So, so why not? I mean, what they do is they see other people selling their products and making money on it. And they think, well, hold on a second. We can get rid of the middleman. Like, we could just sell this stuff directly.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But, Netflix built in is fun and it's good, but I don't know that it's like a Netflix TV. To me, what sells that TV is it's cheap.
It's cheap, but you know who else it's targeting? You know who the market is for this?
Any TV.
What'd you say?
It's okay. I'm sorry.
The market for this is the 20-somethings that are cord cutters. That's who's going to be buying this. You're getting Roku on there. It's already integrated. You don't have to worry about plugging in a device. That's what it is. This is your TV. This is a really interesting concept where if it's able to do well, and Roku's a name that's recognized, this is, that mainstream exposure for a lot of people. If you're going into the store, you see a 55-inch TV for $649, and you have everything on there. You don't have to worry. And the primary thing is Roku. You have all these apps on there. It's all available. You may say, you know what? Hell with cable. I don't need it.
I've said this many times, but if I didn't have kids, aside from live sports, because we do watch a lot of Red Sox games in particular, but I would figure out a way to get rid of TV. Like, that would be, I could do that. Like, I could make that happen. And there's so much quality TV, HBO type series or high quality TV shows that are not on HBO, like The Walking Dead or Breaking Bad or whatever, where, I don't have to see it like the second, right? In fact, it's better to watch those things in kind of a bulk format anyway. And so you can watch like an entire season later on, You can watch an entire show run later on, and that's fine. And I almost feel like they could stop making TV shows now, and for as long as I'm going to live, it's fine because I don't really. It's not like I sit and watch TV 5 hours a night anyway. So, um, you know, I'm good to go. But I guess it depends on your needs.
One more story, Paul. I want to talk about this. The $200 Windows laptop.
Yeah,
The
this
Chromebook
actually looks pretty
killer.
good.
The Chromebook killer. That's what people are calling
That's what
it.
I wanted to. That's what I wanted to tell you. So I've spent a lot of time on this trip investigating different things, So it's not related to me being on this trip. It just so happens that while I was away, and so, for example, I've been looking at. And I was doing this before I left. I've been looking at Android software development. I've been looking at Chromebook and web apps. I've been looking at comparing how the same apps work across multiple platforms and mobile devices. iOS to Android, Windows Phone, and so forth. And you know, as you might expect, as someone who does what I do, you look at stuff and you think about it and you change your mind over time, and things evolve and get better or worse, whatever, and things change. But um, the Chromebook thing has me interested, and Chromebook. I have a Chromebook now that's like an HP Chromebook 11, but it's a really low end device. It's kind of a pretty little device, but it's not something I could actually use because it's too small. It's like this teeny little thing. And I've been kind of reading up on x86 based Chromebooks, and there are a couple in the market now. But for some reason, a lot of Chromebooks are like 11-inch devices. Like there's only a few 13-inch devices. I want to say there's like one 14-inch device.
Yeah, I guess that's because
HP.
of the netbook market, right? I mean, a lot of people like
Yeah.
that, so that's what they're trying to do. That's the gimmick.
So I guess it was. I think it's Acer just came out or just announced a new x86 based Chromebook, and there's a version. It's 14 inches. It's 1080p. There's a version that has like 32 gigs of storage. There's 16 or whatever. And I actually this is so retarded, but because I have to keep tabs on all the different systems. Like I'm actually kind of behind on the Mac, although I'm wondering if that ship hasn't sailed anyway. But I have Android devices. I have everything, right? So I have this little Chromebook, but it's like I really feel like this isn't giving Chromebook a good showing, and so I actually just pre-ordered because it's not out yet. I think it's coming out in the beginning of September. An almost $400 Chromebook from
Wow.
Acer, which is a 14-inch screen, 1080p, 4 gigs of RAM. I think it might be 2 gigs of RAM actually.
How many?
So
How much storage?
I want to say I think it's 32,
Okay.
and it has SD expansion as well. So I actually just spent
Yeah.
like a lot of money on a Chromebook. And so what's ironic about this is the day after I did that, the HP documentation for the Stream laptop leaked, and this thing is actually half as expensive, and the hardware is fairly comparable.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, you got
It's,
a quad core. You got a quad core
quad core AMD processor,
quad core AMD 1.6 gigahertz.
SoC type processor. It's by the way 4.5 watt, really low voltage, so it doesn't require a fan. It's going to be silent.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That alone is interesting. 32 gigs of storage is 64. It's a 1366 by 768 screen, I think. I think it's just like a regular HD screen. But by the way, $200.
And it's Windows.
But it's literally and I did this. I'm surprised no one else thought to do this. I compared it side by side to the Chromebook 14 that HP makes. They are literally they're well, not literally, but they're almost literally identical. The processors are a little different. Actually, the Windows machine has worse storage. It's eMMC storage instead of SSD, so it's not quite as fast, which is a little odd, but
Okay.
whatever. It's $200. The HP Chromebook is $279, $299, something like that. This looks okay. Like I actually think this thing will. This is very interesting. I mean, we talked a lot about the the netbook and how Microsoft fought that and brought out these low-end machines and a low-end version of the operating system. This actually doesn't look terrible for what it is.
How is it going to perform with Windows versus performing with Chrome OS?
Yeah, I mean, well, so Windows is inherently more complex, obviously, but it's also inherently more powerful, and so it opens up that possibility. But one of the things that people don't seem to understand is that when Microsoft released Windows 8.1 Update 1, They made significant gains in how Windows works in low memory configurations and also on hardware that has low storage configurations. And so it works with 1 gigabyte of RAM and it works with 16 gigs of onboard storage. And so this thing has 2 gigabytes of RAM and it has 32 gigabytes of onboard storage. Now, it's not going to be like it's not going to be a video game machine. But when you think about, why would somebody own a Chromebook? Like, what's the point? The point isn't, I'm going to do everything on this. The point is, here's something I can use that has a fairly big screen, that has a real keyboard that I can type on, and I can do those occasional productivity tasks. What would be better than that? Well, a Windows machine that did the same thing, that cost just as little, but ran those real Microsoft apps. Um, I actually think this is kind of a big deal. Like, I think this is going to be pretty successful, and machines like it. I think we're going to see a lot of machines in the, $200 to $300 range this Christmas.
Oh,
So
absolutely. And I think that new Intel chipset that they're putting out, that's,
yeah,
essentially fanless.
yep,
You don't need a fan. It's going to open up an entire
right,
market
right.
to something that we have not seen before with these lower end laptops. The
It's
problem is
yeah, and
you're paying for, first of all, you're going to be able to go much thinner on the
right,
design. Uh, you're going to get better performance. It's not going to heat up as fast as you normally do. You're not going to have this big fan on your computer. This is the change that I'm talking about when I say, what's the next big thing? I think it's going to be these fanless laptops. The days of those giant
yeah,
fans on these things, it's gone.
fanless laptops. Can you imagine? I know. I've been interested to watch the reaction to this online. If you go into Twitter, a lot of power user types are not appreciative of this kind of machine, think it's a mistake and all that. And I get that. It's not for them, for starters. What they need to understand is if this doesn't happen, people just leave Windows. They're not coming back. So no one's buying a Chromebook and then saying, okay, I will buy a $600 Windows laptop next time. This was a mistake. Um, so I think it's important for that reason. But I also think people don't understand that 1 gig of RAM, 16 gigs of storage thing. They don't understand the improvements that Microsoft made in Update 1 because those improvements don't impact you because they require a new hardware. You can't get those improvements on your system. So when you upgrade from Windows 8.1 to Windows 8.1 with Update 1, you're not getting those advantages. That's not part of the upgrade. You only see that on new hardware. And so the HP Stream is the one that happened to leak. It's $200, so it's a big news story. But the truth is, we're going to be seeing a lot of not just laptop type devices, but mini tablets and full-size tablets that fit within the constraints of those parameters this year, this holiday season. So back to school season, which is right now, holiday season and so forth. This is, and we'll see. Is it the netbook again? By the way, possibly,
It's possible,
right?
yeah.
It's possible. Absolutely. Let's be honest about it. I mean, the netbook was, for most people, didn't work out well. But I don't know. People, I think people look at Windows 8 and they think, well, it has to be used with touch and it's really top heavy and it's like Vista or something. And it's like, no, it really is not like that. And especially with this Update 1 release, that's part of this. Um, I think it's gonna be. I don't know. So I like everyone else does not have a machine like this, but I don't. Based on what I know, I don't really think it's going to be horrible. It's not going to overcome some of the basic advantages of a Chromebook around simplicity and so forth, but I don't think it's going to run horribly.
I'm curious to see how it runs, and I'm curious to see how it does against a Chromebook, because I've seen a lot of positive arguments about the Chromebook. The Mets. The Mets.
Dumb Mets.
The Mets. They won, by the way. They beat the Cubs. Not saying much, but because of the Cubs, but they beat the Cubs. Are they, with Windows 9, are they kind of keeping this in mind where a lot of people are going to be using low power laptops and devices like this? So they're going to kind of work with that as part of it? I mean,
Well,
do they anticipate this being like the big thing where people are buying these $200 laptops instead of, spending the money
course.
and getting the higher end ones?
When you hear 1 gig of RAM and 16 gigs of storage, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is that's a phone.
Yeah.
Like that's not a computer, that's a phone. And so, people have tried this, but I think we're going to see those phone computer hybrids. I think we're going to see docking stations for phones where you turn it into a computer, and we're going to see little tablets and big tablets. We're going to see laptops. It's going to run the gamut. And so I think that stuff is all going to happen.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, Paul, time to wrap it up. It's over. We're done. We're moving. Everybody's moving. Go to our website, gfqnetwork.com. You can check out the show archive there. Subscribe to us. We have an SD version, guys, so I know a lot of you have been asking for that. We have an SD version, an HD version, an audio version, so subscribe to all of them. Why not? Why not? Just download us in every possible form.
Just don't download the HD version on your 4G plan.
Yeah, just don't download it on your 4G plan. You check out Paul's website, winsuperside.com. Paul also does a phenomenal podcast every Wednesday on the Twit Network with Mary Jo Foley and Lee Laporte, 2 p.m. East. It's on twit.tv. If you're watching us live, stay tuned. We're going to be doing our bonus show, our Patreon show. If you want to watch our Patreon show, it's exclusive for people who fund the show on patreon.com. That's patreon.com/whatthetech. We just hit $500, so we have a call-in show to do once a month now. We're going to be doing the call-in show. Also, check out our Amazon link. If you're buying anything on Amazon, we got a tiny little credit from it. That's Amazon, gfk.co/Amazon. I forgot the name, or you could just click on the Amazon banner, save it there. And that's it, guys. See you all next week.